morning, everybody. My name is Tim Deep. I'm the Customer Success Manager for DCKAP, and I'd like to welcome you guys to our eSessions for October. So this one's a very special one. It's going to be the strength of partnerships and how to win Cyber Weekend 2020. So if you're a merchant or distributor out there that haven't got ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, this is a great session for you to even learn about and kind of see what the industry practice, the standards are for practices, and just to see what other companies are doing out there. So Klaviyo, Matt and Steph from Klaviyo, they're going to be doing a great presentation and just to be able to just talk about how to really win on Cyber Weekend. It's going to look a lot different this year, and it's going to be a great presentation. So, and then even afterwards, we'll have a video recording of this, so you could share with all your friends and family as well. So it's going to be a great session. I hope you guys enjoy it. I've also turned on a poll for you to answer. Just want to ask a couple questions, just to see what type of breakdown the attendees are. So if you have a chance, please fill that out. That'll help us out tremendously. And even for moving forward, we have a Q&A portion on the very bottom. You can, during each session, just feel free to add in your questions in there, and I'll make sure that each of the presenters, they'll be able to answer your questions. Either we'll answer them live, or they can even send off a chat. And then feel free to chat in the box as well. So, but looking forward to a great session with you guys. And first of all, I'd like to thank all the sponsors. So we have Klaviyo, Medicake, AmericanEagle.com, and Proficient. So this eSession is going to be a little bit different. For DCKAP, we like to work a lot with agencies and technology partners in the ecosystem. Without all these different companies in the ecosystem, it's going to make it a lot easier for merchants and distributors to really get going on their e-commerce websites. So as for us, we like to bring the community together, and hopefully all this information will be very informative for you guys. So the topic is going to be Cyber Weekend 2020, what we've learned and how to prepare. I'd like to introduce Matt Serwin and Steph Flynn. They're agency partner managers at Klaviyo, focusing their time on helping build go-to-market relationships with strategic e-commerce partners and enabling merchants to grow their businesses through Klaviyo's personalized approach to marketing automation and analytics. They're both residents of Boston, Massachusetts, where Klaviyo is headquartered. So I'd like to bring to the stage Matthew and Steph. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Tim. Great to see everybody.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having us.
So yeah, we're super excited to be here. Also joined by a bunch of partners that we interact with regularly. So very excited to talk about a really important topic today, looking at Cyber Weekend, what we've learned so far in 2020, as well as how we're going to talk about preparing for what's to come and plan for beyond that. So as Tim had said, my name is Matt Serwin. I am an agency partnership manager here at Klaviyo, and I'm joined by my colleague, Steph.
Hi, everyone.
And yeah, we're really excited just in terms of being able to talk about partnerships today and how this impacts, overall planning and what we do within our roles, as well as, strategies and things to go from there. So just a little bit about Klaviyo for anybody who's not familiar before we jump in today. We're an own marketing platform that helps brands create highly personalized marketing experiences with their customers. So we're known primarily for email marketing, but our platform also includes SMS, forms, segmentation, data science, and built-in custom analytics functionality. We're also the only marketing platform that can serve brands from day one, also providing a superior product and experience for even the largest of enterprise e-commerce brands, which you can see a little bit of here. So we have Neon Bandits, who is a growing and rapidly evolving startup, as well as Chubbies, which has tremendous momentum and is becoming a household name, all the way up to Huckberry and ColourPop, which are very well-known larger enterprise-sized brands. So today, what we're going to talk to you about are these 4 topics. We're going to hit on what 2020 has looked like from our perspective and the data that we've gathered, as well as looking at our predictions for Cyber Weekend, which is rapidly approaching, as well as how you can prepare and get your brand ready to make the most of this tremendous opportunity. And then some reminders on exactly, what you should be tightening up and thinking about as we head into, the holiday season and beyond. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Steph, who's going to take you through the 2020 e-commerce landscape that we've observed.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here today and to chat with you guys about the e-commerce landscape thus far. So back in February, before we really felt the impact of the coronavirus outbreak, we learned that the US e-commerce sales grew 14.9% from 2018 to 2019. This was according to Digital Commerce 360, applying the same growth rate to 2020. That would mean that we'd expect e-commerce sales to reach $691.4 billion. But of course, we all know a lot changed. COVID-19 hit and gave us new meaning for the word unprecedented. Stores closed, the country went into lockdown, and consumer behavior changed. More than ever, people took the internet earlier this year to make purchases as stay-at-home orders and social distancing guidelines emerged. Economies, labor forces, and how people shop worldwide have been reshaped by this pandemic. So we sought to better understand the impact that coronavirus had on the e-commerce landscape. I'm not sure if any of you on the line had heard of Project Lighthouse, but that was kind of our internal initiative to really figure out what was going on. The team conducted daily polls, held in-depth customer conversations, and analyzed trends within our own data set. We at Klaviyo, we always capture billions of e-commerce transactions. We have over 50,000 customers today, so we know we had to share what we're seeing within our product, within the e-commerce community at large. So ultimately, we concluded what I'm sure is no surprise to you, that e-commerce is really booming right now. Our research shows that 90% of consumers are now shopping online, which is up from 70% at the start of the pandemic. With that in mind, we predict that 2020 will definitely be the biggest year ever for e-commerce sales. And here we're going to talk about how big. This year, e-commerce sales could hit $1.1 trillion. That's a drastic difference from the $691.4 billion pre-pandemic projection from before. Digging into the math, that would account for 75% growth year over year. So that's about 15% standard growth we would have achieved. Remember that 2019 growth rate, plus the 60% COVID-driven growth we've seen in looking at the average growth rates of more than our 50,000 customers. While 2020 looks like it will shape up to be the single biggest year for e-commerce ever, the same can be said for Cyber Weekend, which this year will fall from November 26th through November 30th. Assuming Cyber Weekend sales represent a similar proportion of relative overall e-commerce sales in 2020 as they have previously, Cyber Weekend sales should come in at $51.1 billion for just that weekend. That number alone is staggering, but there's something else we predict that this number will be larger than what we'll see for next year, Cyber Weekend 2021. So could our projections be off? Sure. As we know, 2020 has been a roller coaster. Tons of things have happened that we haven't expected. That's made it hard for us to predict hard numbers, but we're comfortable giving ourselves a little wiggle room here. Based on the sales rate of Klaviyo customers and Amazon's Q2 growth numbers, 88.9 billion or 966 million per day, we're confident to say. I'm now going to hand it to Matt to talk about key drivers for the biggest Black Friday, Cyber Monday ever.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I think staggering is the right word to be using at this point. And yeah, we're going to see a lot of really exciting things going forward. And here are 5 that we specifically want to call out when we're looking at Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So I think the first part shouldn't really come as a surprise. Consumer shopping behaviors have now shifted. You know, they'll never entirely shift back. Online has become the new normal. There were people that were probably more prone to avoiding e-commerce for a while and relying on the brick and mortar model. This has kind of removed that from their consideration set. So they have to get comfortable with this. And even if it's not completely sticky for that entire group, you're going to have a much larger percentage moving towards e-commerce, especially because we were seeing the growth trends already taking place. And now all we've done is really ramped up where that's going to take us for Black Friday and beyond. Number two, ongoing waves of the coronavirus will continue to upend our daily lives with uncertainty. I mean, it was rough even through the summer. We've seen certain areas go back up a little bit. We're heading into the cold and flu season anyway. And then there's just, different rules and methodologies all around the country and all around the world of how this is being handled. So there's going to be this continued uncertainty, which is going to make it really hard for people to transition back to brick and mortar purchasing and really rely on what e-commerce has to offer. So the third part, I think if you've been following and keeping up with this to any capacity in the news, department stores are experiencing inventory problems and it's flying under the radar. Not only are they inconsistent with how they're opening and keeping things moving forward or staying in business, but you're also now seeing, what we saw in the early stages of, it was really tough to get certain products as people started hoarding. And then it's still like, I was personally looking for a bicycle pump for my tires, and I saw something that was like a 6-week wait time. So even simple things that we're accustomed to getting really quickly, whether it's in person or online, that still remains a really important factor and something that brands have to pay attention to as we head into the holidays. The fourth one, discounts once reserved for Cyber Weekend will appear earlier and more frequently this fall. We're already seeing that. I've personally seen sales from a lot of our brands starting, the last week of September. We're also seeing brands that traditionally have a policy where they do not want to discount or offer any type of incentive, starting to entertain that a little bit more. And I think that's interesting to see how that continues to evolve and what we can learn from it. And the final piece on this slide, shopping behavior will shift again due to social distancing restrictions and retail planning. We've seen, major retailers already saying, our doors won't be open on Black Friday the way that they traditionally have been. So there's not going to be many other options for people to do other than to shift into e-commerce. So I think how a brand prepares and handles that opportunity is going to be really telling as we go forward. 60% of Cyber Weekend sales are driven by a customer that you've already had a relationship with prior in the year. So I think that's really important to be considering as we head into this Black Friday and Cyber Monday, because this is what we saw back in 2019. We already knew this was going to be bigger than the previous year because that has been the trend, but now you have this amplification of what's going on. And how do you make the most use of customers that you've already acquired and have built some type of relationship with? And are you seeing this influx of activity already? From a consumer-driven discovery perspective, what we're seeing is that it's an all-time high recently. The chart that you're looking at here, it shows new customers and repeat spending throughout the year across the Klaviyo customer data set. The dark green area of the chart represents the new customers. And as you can see, that volume has consistently increased since mid-March when stay-at-home restrictions went into place. Also, even as stores have continued to gradually and staggered reopen, the average new customer spending level is still higher than it was pre-COVID, which is still showing strength and opportunity for what's out there. Now, 46% of consumers are shopping from and engaging with brands, that are new to them. And this is a sizable opportunity, but only if you take the time to grow these relationships and turn these would-be one-time purchasers into actual brand enthusiasts. So how do you do this? How do you gain shopper trust and buy-in? This is something that's really important because a lot of consumers that we've seen in other studies that we've run are that people just aren't impressed with the e-commerce experience that they've been having. So this is again where that 46% number comes into play, where you have the opportunity to not only earn that trust, but really surprise and delight with positive experiences through the e-commerce design. So while there's no silver bullet to marketing and every brand will find its own channel mix that works for them and how omni-channel strategy works, here are some of the thoughts that we have around it. Email performance is through the roof. Email is a proven marketing channel for revenue growth across our full customer database. Email-driven revenue is up 86% compared to pre-COVID time. Across Klaviyo's own customers, we're seeing a 22% increase in open rates, 43% increase in email clicks, and 60% increase in revenue per recipient. Granted, these are averages. Some customers are seeing much higher performance even. So now email marketing as a channel is not a total strategy. I want to stress that because these performance stats are largely driven by delivering the right message to the right individuals at the right time. So if you can nail that in your overall scope, this is what you look at in terms of gains. So now, we've talked about what's out there and what we've experienced up until this point. So I'm going to kick it back over to Steph, and she's going to show you how to prepare and what you should be focusing on as we get ready to approach Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Thanks, Matt. Great. So how to prepare here. So to level set, there are about 45 calendar days left until Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So if you haven't started planning for it yet, it's not too late, but it's very close. So you don't want to let this opportunity pass you by. As Matt just got into those numbers, it's going to be a big season for e-commerce. So here are 6 things that we're really going to dive into throughout this presentation that you as an e-commerce marketer should really focus on. We're going to look at these much closer, but for example, reviewing 2019 performance, understanding who your audience is, building those core segments, improving deliverability, and so on and so forth. We'll get into those right now. So number 1 on the priority list, review your 2019 performance and set 2020 goals. Taking stock of inventory. The need to set goals based on last year's performance isn't new, but your business state heading into Cyber Weekend might be, and probably is. Many brands have inventory issues right now. They're not able to fulfill and replenish as quickly as they thought they would. I know Matt gave a great example of that before. If this is you too, make sure you analyze your performance data against what inventory you have and then push what those customers are responding to. Now, if you're on the smaller side and starting out, and maybe this is your first holiday season, it might be tempting to overlook this goal setting and really just jump right into execution. Obviously, it's a very exciting time of year for your business. But if this is you or you need a refresher on goal setting in general, we've included an example here that you can reference when you get the slides of this presentation later this week. So if you're a larger brand, you probably already have these goals set up for this huge part of your year. Because you're operating towards this each and every week. But based on the performance record that you had last Cyber Weekend, one thing we'll want to do is see if there's a sub goal that you'll want to hit. It could be around increasing your customer lifetime value of your VIPs or heritage customer segment. Maybe you want to convert 25% of non-subscription customers over to your subscription offering. No matter what the size of the brand is that you are working on, remember to define your specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound SMART goals. And like I said, this is important for both small brands and for large brands who may already have a broader plan in play. You'll also want to really make sure that you're aligning internally with all stakeholders. So whether that's your product, creative, marketing, or your agency teams, it's really important to make sure that you're all on the same page. Making the time to really connect with the partner network that you're working with, whether it is your agency partner at play, can be very important and pivotal in how successful your brand will be this year, because you want to make sure that everyone's kind of aligned on those larger plans and then also those smaller sub goals. So you'll want to discuss the current state of the business, discuss performance last year and how you're planning on improving that this year, brainstorm ideas, and then make sure every single person, whether they're internal to your company or external within your agency firm, make sure that they're accountable for their actions there. Next, you'll want to determine metrics you'll use to measure success. So I gave some examples before. Maybe you'll want to look at the number of repeat purchasers. Maybe you'll want to look at your average order value, but just ensure that you're setting specific metric-based goals. That way you can kind of measure how you perform this season after the fact. And lastly, you're going to want to iterate based on data. So analyze what's going on throughout the holiday season, especially if you're starting off these strategies before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which we would recommend. You're going to want to learn beforehand, pivot, and then optimize your strategy. That way you're getting better and better and hitting those metrics at a broader scale here. All right, another focus that we really want to touch on here is growing your audience and re-engaging contacts. I know Matt mentioned that it's important to start now to really make sure that you're acquiring your customer base, re-engaging those who have purchased from you before, because these people are really going to matter during this holiday season. So first and foremost, the cheapest way to build your email list is through website forms. So if you don't have at least one form set up on your website, we'd recommend adding one ASAP. Especially if you're utilizing Klaviyo, Form Builder is kind of an existing product functionality that comes with Klaviyo. So it's super important and very seamless to add that form. Beyond that, think about how you can personalize each form to create unique and advantageous experiences for your users. You can use forms for newsletter signups, birthday rewards, tiered discounts. It's really better to have someone land on your website, not purchase anything, and then subscribe to your email updates rather than just bounce and not come back. And that's really because then at least you can better understand who that customer is, understand who and what they're looking for, and serve them better with your email strategy in the future. Awesome. You'll also really want to focus on your acquisition strategy, as I mentioned. So the closer we get to the holidays, the more crowded the ads marketplace will become. So consider all the retailers that are pivoting to e-commerce driven sales. I mean, Matt and I see that all the time. Brands who historically focused on brick and mortar and really are making that digital transformation. So we recommend that brand marketers focus on acquisition now, but monitor online ad performance and costs closely so that you can adjust when necessary. In your acquisition efforts, retargeting existing segments like cart and browse abandoners, lapsed customers are super good ideas. We also suggest taking that VIP customer segment from before, creating a lookalike audience based on it. That way you're using that first party data that belongs to you to find more people that look like your best performing customers. Reaching a more qualified audience helps lower your CAC and increase your return on ad spend. If you have a Klaviyo account, you can use your Klaviyo's Facebook and Instagram integration to do all of these things. You can also capture leads on Facebook and Instagram and feed these contacts into Klaviyo in real time. We consider testing these Facebook lead gen forms versus sales promos. In our conversations with customers, it can cost anywhere between $1 and $5 to acquire an email address, versus $5 to $12 to acquire a purchase. It's most important to get email addresses right now while it's cheaper. Anywhere between $1 to $5 to acquire an email address versus that $5 to $12 to acquire a purchase here. Awesome. So when it comes to re-engaging lapsed customers, it's also better to do this sooner rather than later. That's because these contacts are lower in terms of email engagement rates. That could damage your sender reputation down the line, and we want to make sure that we have really high engagement heading into Cyber Weekend promos so you can ensure your emails are actually delivered. So really focusing on engaging these contacts to help deliverability is very important. So before we really get into the weeds of the holiday season, try and wrap up those win-back efforts in the next week or so. And then you'll want to retarget those people on social advertising later through another channel if you want to try and engage them. But this is in an effort to help those deliverability goals there. Awesome. So building core marketing segments. This is another huge focus that should be taking place for Cyber Weekend planning. Building core marketing segments are really important, and we have 4 main ones you'll want to definitely use this year. So 1 being subscribers that have engaged with your emails in the last 30, 60, 90, and 180 days. That way you have those different pools of engagement and you can segment and target those accordingly. You'll also want to create a segment of Cyber Weekend 2019 purchasers. So these would be people who placed an order at least once in the last year and placed orders 0 times since Cyber Weekend last 2019. A third segment to create that will be really great is your best customers. So those that have bought from you recently, buy from you frequently, and buy at a very high AOV. An example of that would be someone who's placed an order more than 3 times overall time, or maybe they've placed an order value 3 times your average order value. And then last but not least, your master list is super important. So that is all contacts with email addresses that are not suppressed. So these are 4 key segments that we want to make sure that you're building out. So focus on these to start when you're looking at your kind of email strategy for the holiday season. Great. So next, section 4, really assessing and improving your email deliverability. This is hyper important for this time of year because we want to make sure that your customers are receiving the emails and the great content that you're putting out there. So for starters, look at your average email open rate. It should really be above 20% heading into the holiday weekend. If it's not there yet, that's where those marketing segments that we just talked about come into play. To increase your average open rate above 20%, start sending to the engagement list outlined that we went over before. You'll want to give yourself at least a month or so to do this list warming and thereby improve your sender reputation. How does this help increase your average open rate? If people who have engaged with your brand more recently and have opened those emails more recently, if you're sending to them, your open rate is going to increase and you'll be able to hit that 20% benchmark. You don't want to shock mailbox providers with a sudden increase of email send volume right away. You want to make sure that you're building up to that sending volume. That way your reputation is in the clear here. Awesome. And now we're heading into section 5, which is optimizing your website experience for customers, which is super, super important. So one thing to really consider is looking at expectations by generation. Matt and I were talking about this, and you could really do an entire webinar on website optimizations alone, but here are the main highlights. First and foremost, check your website health in terms of site speed, uptime, mobile compatibility. Come Cyber Weekend, if your site goes down due to kind of this increased amount of demand, which we definitely are expecting, or if pages don't load quick enough, you could be losing a new customer who could be visiting your site. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. You also want to make sure that your website has mobile friendliness. A lot of people are going to be shopping on their phones. We see this very frequently. So you're going to want to make sure that that is up to par. Is the experience optimal for a customer? Are they having a good shopping experience? Are the products rendering correctly? Are forms, when you go directly onto the website, kind of interfering with that shopping experience? Those are all things that you want to look into. Navigation, for example. So make sure that you are kind of checking all of those boxes, especially when it comes to website development, and kind of make sure that these concerns, if there are any, are put to the table now with your team, your web development team. That way you can kind of get those sorted out prior to the big weekend coming up. Awesome. And then beyond those functionality kind of points that I just mentioned, ask yourself if your website is designed to optimize for conversions. Think through Cyber Weekend specific experiences you want your website to include. Do you want to feature a gift guide? Do you want gift browsing in the upper navigation? Do you want pop-ups with gift recommendations? One thing to really keep in mind this year is some people are shopping online for the first time. So the website user experience is going to be increasingly important for generations like baby boomers, for example, who maybe historically have done all of their shopping in person for the holiday season. So building trust with these new users by adding product reviews, optimizing your checkout process, and over communicating your return policy is hyper important and will allow them to have a great experience, which will hopefully make them want to come back to shop with your brand again online. Awesome. So another thing we want to chat about is that idea of revisiting things that are maybe already up and running today. So revisit your automations that you have set up, start running A/B and tests and see kind of what's working best with your customers. So you'll want to look at those 5 major marketing automations that everyone should have set up. So your welcome series, browse abandonment, cart abandonment, post-purchase, and back in stock. And then when you're evaluating those 5 major automations, you'll want to ask yourself, does this language make sense? Is it relevant to the holidays? Are these promo codes relevant? Do they have to do with summer? Do they have to do with something else that's not the holiday season? Maybe update those. Is the content personalized enough? Is the revenue per recipient high enough for these automations? Should you keep them running during this time, or do you need to kind of do testing, change them up to kind of ensure that you're seeing those metrics that make the most sense? We'll send a more detailed breakdown of performance benchmarks in the email follow-up so you can see how you compare to other people who specifically are utilizing these automations within your vertical as well. Awesome. And to improve performance and make the content more relevant to recipients, you can always test a ton, personalizing by gender, by product, category interest, customer lifecycle stage, average order value, VIP status. There are a million ways to personalize your communication strategy. That way it's relevant for all of the customers who you are speaking to through your brand. Other ways to personalize that you should consider, imagery, subject lines. That's actually another one that I recommend testing a ton before Black Friday, Cyber Monday to understand what subject lines really resonate with your customers. Testing out timing. You can add timing delays to your automations, kind of see if kind of hitting your customers more quickly or giving them some space between emails. That's a great thing to test. Test that content and messaging, and then also discounts and incentives. Understand kind of what discount, what incentive is really going to allow the customer to convert based on what segment they fall in as well. Okay, so last but not least, it's time to see really what works. A/B testing doesn't have to be a huge undertaking, especially in Klaviyo. We've figured out a way to implement A/B testing within sign-up forms, within automations, within our campaigns to make it really easy for marketers to test things out. But you want to figure out what you want to A/B test. So whether that's subject line, your CTA button color, an incentive, and then make sure you're just testing that one variable. If a CTA variation leads to a 10% increase in sales, you'll want that CTA in place for the busiest shopping season of the year. It can really make all the difference when you're trying to hit those revenue goals this holiday season. All right, and I'm going to pass it back to Matt, who's going to chat through owning growth through this holiday season.
Thanks, Steph. It's very clear that there's a lot of robust strategies that people can be putting in place and a lot of great tools to use. I think it also really further reinforces, why our partner team looks to partner with great system integrators and digital marketing agencies, because this is just so much that they have on their plates as a brand that looking for these trusted outside resources is a huge advantage, going into this holiday season or really any time of year when you're looking to just scale your brand further. To kind of build upon that, so now we're going to take a look at the concept of owned marketing and owning your own growth. People are flocking to brands that value the relationship with the customer experience over the transaction. These stronger experiences are creating convenience, quality, and most importantly, trust, like Steph had mentioned, with consumers. These traits show that a brand that understands a consumer and they can connect with on a personal level ultimately ends up driving customer advocacy and leading to even more sales growth sustainably in the future. This superior customer experience doesn't start at the point of the first purchase. It begins the moment a customer is exposed to your brand. And these D2C brands are winning new customers in two main ways. First, their existing customers have become loyal and market via, word of mouth for the brand. But secondly, they use well-targeted new customer acquisition, leveraging their own data to do this. This has all been made possible because we built Klaviyo with all of the customer data, the robust profile and behavioral data at the center of the platform. We made it really easy to collect and store an unlimited amount of data at the customer level, all of which can be used to build really powerful experiences. So you should be thinking about Klaviyo as much more than an email platform, as this graphic implies and shows you why. With Klaviyo, you can leverage data from all of your channels and build relationships. This is also an example of why we have built out a dedicated partnership team here at Klaviyo, because our partners are integral to the success of our customers. Whether that's from technologies integrating into Klaviyo or digital marketing agencies and system integrators working with customer brands in order to create the best possible opportunity to achieve success. The proof is in the platform. 67 brands switch to Klaviyo every day, and our customers have made more than $3.7 billion in revenue in the last year alone. We recently ranked number 22 out of 100 for fastest growing products and number 39 out of 50 for best products for marketers in G2's annual survey. And we're also the recent winner of the MarTech Breakthrough 2020 Award for Best MarTech Startup. So really glad that we were able to talk you through, what we've learned this year and how we're helping brands prepare for the holidays and beyond, and look forward to talking with everybody on the panel and getting their insights on just what they think about all of this.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Steph. Very great. That's a great presentation. Lots of key takeaways, and the time to act is now, right, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we do have one question that came in from Raj Barath. So he asks, do you have any suggestions for the exhaust that people have with receiving campaign emails they are getting, and how can one stand out?
It's a really good question. I think it comes back a lot to the brand strategy of, what are you seeing in terms of like how you're defining too many emails today? We're looking typically around 3 to 4 emails per week are sensible, but you also have to really dig in and look at the content. Depending on your brand, you might have more or less leeway for more frequent touch points, but a lot of that has to come from the fact that you need to be generating really meaningful content to, like we talked about, build that trust, as well as give people, something that they can care about. It can't all be sales emails, and it definitely can't all be campaigns. Part of the advantages of Klaviyo is that you can get hyper personalized with the data that's on the profile. So that again is going to give you more organic outreach and touch points to make sure that that exhaustion doesn't happen. But it's a great thing to be aware of. I think that's a great starting point. And then beyond that, testing and looking at the metrics of those performance emails, that's what you're going to want to keep an eye on. You're going to want to see like what your baseline was. You can look at benchmark reports provided from Klaviyo, and then really understand, where are you in that spectrum and what can you be doing to adjust it? Because there's times that people think they're sending too much, and we look at their account health and they're actually performing above average. So I think there's sometimes a learning curve there, but really making the most use of the analytics you have and the personalization. But Steph, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say get creative, really test new ideas and concepts out with your customer base and understand if it's fitting well with them by kind of the A/B performance metrics that you can see in the platform. I'd also say that, we spend a ton of time educating our partners on what's doing well within Klaviyo. So really leaning on your partner resources to kind of work with them, brainstorm, get creative, get those creative juices flowing is really helpful. Sometimes working with that outside voice can spark new ideas. So I would say really just look at those metrics and then really kind of look around you and see what is being successful elsewhere as well.
Yeah, great stuff. I love to have you guys kind of put different measures in place of what you should strive for, even that 20% open rate. So sometimes, maybe merchants, they don't know where they should be hitting in terms of their marketing campaigns. So it's really good that you guys have all these things in place of what you should do, but also where you should, where the average is, where you should be excelling in. So, yeah, but thank you so much.
And we have those
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we have those benchmarks broken down by different verticals. So whether you're in food and beverage, whether you're in fashion and apparel, or many other verticals, we kind of take those metrics across our 50,000 customers and boil them down. That way brands can really compare and see where they stack up against other brands like them.
Yeah,
And we've added 2 new features in the last quarter. One for our partners, which are quarterly and monthly growth reviews for the clients that they're managing on Klaviyo. So within their portal, they're actually able to run these templates and provide deeper analysis very quickly. But just in the past few weeks, we actually launched our customer analytics tool, which gives brands and partners the ability to go into account and really start digging into data in a way that typically you are paying other platforms for this type of privilege to be able to go through. So that's a continued push that we're going to have, so that we are providing, access to really high quality insights so you can make your strong brand decisions.
That's great. That's great. So even post event, we have all this information and great content. We'll send it to everybody post event through email. So thank you guys.